one of the questions I get asked is, what's the difference between MRP and MPS? It's like, are they the same thing? Are they different? And they're not. They're different. I'll give you a simple graphic to remind you of how they're different a little later, but let's get through some of the Apex speak on, what are these two animals of which we speak? So your master production schedule is the driver behind your MRP. So we take bills of material, and MPS will determine what components are needed for manufacturing, what do we need to buy. Your MPS typically is your priority plan for manufacturing. It's an indicator of what are we going to produce no matter what. This is what we have to produce to either optimize raw materials or because I have a shortage of raw materials. It is what I need to produce because I can't have a line down. This line needs to run 724, or I have a batch size. I have a tank, and when I make cough mixture, I make 750 liters of it. Doesn't matter if I need 1 liter or not, I'm making 750 liters. And it also gives me an indicator of how much would I have to promise to customers. MRP, on the other hand, looks at dependent demand. It says, what are some of the variables in my business that maybe I can use to flex and modify my downstream requirements? So MRP items have dependent demand. This could be a sales order, it could be forecast, it could be demand coming from a different item. I'm trying to drive to appropriate inventory on hand to keep stuff operating with minimum inventory and maximum efficiency. We're going to be using our bill of material, we're going to be using our routes, we're going to be looking at capacity, and we're going to be trying to say what is the most flexible way to minimize inventory, optimize resources that I have to produce or purchase an item. So an input of an MRP is your MPS, it's your on-hand inventory, it's what you have coming in, your scheduled receipts, either from purchase orders or production orders or transfer orders, as well as your structure, your bill of materials, and your routes or your routes. So the difference is that typically your MPS just looks at one layer of the bill of material. It just says, what do I need to do to make this one thing? It doesn't jump up and down. It doesn't get particularly concerned about all the other stuff. That's what MRP does. MRP is going to go down through all the layers of a bill of material and go from top level all the way down to bottom level. So this is why we tend to use the two together. And this is going to drive some of my efficiency. So my hierarchy typically is I'm going to have a master production schedule that I am going to use to optimize bottlenecks, resource constraints, capacity issues, either physical or people, like a tank, versus I have to run this machine 724. That then flows into my MRP, which gives me some of my flexibility, gives me some more of my inputs, gives me an idea of what some of my variable demand is, and that can then feed my capacity requirements plan. So if I want a picture, this is my master production schedule. It's the grumpy cat. This is the guy that sits there and says, I don't really care what your forecast is. I don't really care what your customer orders are. I'm telling you, when I make cough mixture, I make 750 liters at a time. Or when I run this press, I'm going to make 10,000 parts. And maybe I'm only going to do that once every 6 months. But I am not going to tool up a piece of equipment and then tear down that tooling to make 3 parts. So master production schedule, I think of as the grumpy cat. It is what it is. This is what we need to do to optimize equipment, inventory, resources, setup times, or in some instances, seasonality of product. So grumpy cat, MPS. MRP is my cat riding a unicorn with glitter and rainbows, and it's the what could I possibly be doing? Can I be doing this? Can I flex that? What would be the best way of driving inventory to zero? What would be the best way of optimizing all my resources? And so the two of them come together in this kind of a diagram, where if I'm working in a make-to-stock environment where I always need to have inventory on hand, I am going to be scheduling, master production scheduling more often than I'm going to be allowing MRP to come up with plans and wish lists. The more variety or the more engineer to order, make to order my business is, the more flexibility I should have in production and the higher degree of components or end items I am going to be managing. And the greater the number of end items, configs, builds, engineering, design, the more likely I am to use only MRP and only a little bit of Grumpy Cat master production scheduling. So there's no one rule that says you just leave everything up to MRP, let it run down through all the multiple levels, and we'll just have a look at what MRP comes up with and we'll refine it, versus no, I am going to manage each and every item individually with a grumpiness. Most businesses are going to have some items that they will master production schedule because of some constraints or production requirements, and they'll have some businesses that we can flex and run with MRP. There is no one combination for any business. Where do we typically use master production scheduling? Where do we typically see people using it? If you're custom manufacturing, you're a machine shop, you're engineer to order, a high degree of make to order, we're going to see a lot of that master scheduling is going to be at the top of my build pyramid. So I am going to be real picky about those final assemblies. I'm going to be real picky about the finished goods. At making, once I have that schedule, everything is going to flow from that schedule. And once that schedule's in place, I'm not going to deviate from it. I'm not going to let MRP push stuff around and recommend changes or updates. So Grumpy Cat comes in and says, this is the way it's going to be. And MRP goes, okay, then I'll just worry about everything else down here. But if you say we're making 10 on the 1st of April, then I will just go to that plan. I'm not going to give you action messages to say, well, could we move it forward or could we push it back? Or how about we make 5? It's just going to be 10. Repetitive manufacturing, I may have a high number of raw materials that go into a smaller number of sub-assemblies, and then the sub-assemblies go out to a bigger number of finished goods. So my pinch point or my point of constraint is going to be here in the middle. And so this is where I'm going to focus my master scheduling. And then if I'm in commodity manufacturing, I'm making beer, I'm making cough syrup. I was working with a customer last week that has 10 raw materials and they manufacture 182 SKUs. If I don't have those 10 raw materials going down the lines, I can't make all these end items. So I'm going to master schedule very, very close to the source of the item. So I may be all over the initial production and or purchasing. So hopefully that gives you an idea of where you can master schedule, the difference between master scheduling and MRP. I always have that grumpy cat that master scheduling doesn't really care about the everything else in the business. Master scheduling says, this is what I need to do, and this is what I'm going to do. Everybody else, play my game. MRP is always up for a party, always up for optimization. If we're looking at a stocked end item, if you're wanting a little cheat sheet on how do I set up an item to be a little more MPS, in a lot of other systems, you'll have a flag on an item that says this is an MPS item. And it automatically goes out and it just locks everything down. It's only going to look at a single level bill. It's never going to give you action messages. It's always looking at a set time frame, etc. In D365 F&O, there's quite a bit more flexibility around master MPS items. And so one process, and there are different processes, you're going to start out with some manually created planned orders. You can approve them so that MRP doesn't remove them the next time MRP runs. So you could have planned orders going out 6 months to make 10 a week. When you need them, you firm them. That creates a production order, and that then flows into a production order process. This could also be purchase orders as well, right? You may have vendors who say, you know, you can order 1,000 from me, but I'm only going to give you 100 a week. Coverage codes on MPS items, you could set them to manual. I'm not a big fan of setting them to manual because then I can't use my net requirement screen, and I like my net requirement screen. I like to see what the push and pulls are against an item. When you set an item to manual, you're telling the system, don't worry about anything. I have this completely under control. You don't have to help me out here at all. So I'm not a fan of manual. I've seen where people use it, like if you're going to go buy gold bars or super expensive things. But again, you know, you have a big engine behind you. I'd like to use some of it. So this is where I see people using period, and they're typically turning off action messages, because once you have decided what that plan is going to be, you don't want the system trying to be helpful. You don't want the system saying, you know, you really don't need these this week. Why don't you cancel this order? And MRP tends to be noise. Master production scheduling tends to be less noise. So turn off your action messages. The other thing to remember is if you had put in a master plan schedule, available to promise and capable to promise are supported in D365, which is a rather nice feature of the system. So I've got a very simple example set up in my system here, just to give you a little taste. I have an end item, and those of you that have access to the Contoso database, these are items in the Contoso database, so you can go play with these after this little webinar. My parent number is L0050, and I have a component M0055. These are in a bill of material. We can see the structure here in the view. And if I go and have a look at my net requirements, and I love me a nice net requirement screen, I can see down here, I have a planned production order out there for 212. And what it's done is it's aggregated, because I have period planning, these two bits of forecast of 50 plus 162. And it says, all right, let's go make 212. And that's my March. And then here in April, I have a forecast for 75. I'm going to go make 75. So nice bucketed 2 months worth of production in 2 production orders and 3 buckets of forecast or demand in 3 little packages here. If I go look at my master production schedule item, my M0055, here it is here. I'm going to go look at net requirements. What I have done down here is I'm saying I can only make 50 a week. So if I come and have a look at my handy dandy supply schedule, which is where I like spending time, we can see that I'm actually running a negative inventory. And quite frankly, I'm not sure I care, because I can only make 50 a week. So this is what my planned production is looking like. Here's March. I have 50 a week. April, MRP is telling me I need to have 150 in total. So I can go and split that. And I'm going to say on the Friday, April 2nd, split quantity must be less than 50. Why is that? Oh, because I'm highlighting the wrong order. I love it when the system's smarter than me, right? So let's go highlight the right order. So I can now tell the system, you're going to get 50 on April 2nd, and I'm going to take this bad boy from MRP, and I'm going to say, nope, I'm making 50 the following week. And this requirement here for April 2nd, that's going to happen out in the 3rd week of April. So what I've now done is I've taken those 2 production orders that my parent item wanted, and I've now flattened that out and said we can have 50 a week. I can go ahead and I can approve these April production orders. So if MRP runs, they don't disappear. The thing to remember about approving a planned order in advance, just fun fact, is if the bill of materials for M0055 changes between now and let's say April 16th, this planned order won't know about that bill of material change. So don't be planning stuff too far in advance if you have an item where there's liable to be bill of material changes. Otherwise, you've got to cancel this planned order and recreate it. So then if I come back and I have a look, I've now got my flattened production per my MPS that's now going to be giving me this, see this more flat inventory going out into the future. These elements, if I go out in time, this is what's now being produced going out. I'm still running negative because I still have more demand than I have supply for, but at this moment in time, all I can make is 50 a week. And so the production orders for my parent item, they'll start getting action messages that, you know, we have issues because my rate of production is less than my rate of consumption at the parent level. So I don't have action messages turned on here, but I'd be seeing action messages in terms of pushing stuff out. So that's a way of how MRP and MPS play side by side. They have their place. I tend to lean heavily on letting MRP be as flexible as possible, but it is the party cat, and it can make a lot of noise, and it can end up having you doing a lot of chasing your own tail, rushing around, getting a lot of action messages. So for your bottlenecks, for your points of constraint, or where you have to have control, you need to be doing master production scheduling.